When the research and development of various black technologies in the distillery fell on Ye Gengyi, he said his position was a bit crooked. Chin wine. Icewine. Nah, this is the latest tracking software developed, and it only takes 20 seconds to find the target. P.S. This book is a light-hearted, crime-solving, and daily genre keywords of the novel.柯研人in the world of Kushui no pop-ups, complete collection download of柯研人in the world of Kushui txt, latest chapter reading of柯研人in the world of Kushui. Chapter 1. The first night of opening the black curtain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The first night of opening the black curtain, ending the tiredness of the whole day. Ye Gengyi lay in bed and took out his phone to record this passage. The biological nanorobot has made significant progress and is now undergoing its first human experiment at exactly 3 a.m. After typing the last punctuation mark, Ye Gengyi put a capsule-shaped medicine into his mouth and slowly closed his eyes. In the darkness, a burst of light and shadow intertwined, gradually awakening consciousness. In a daze, Ye Gengyi felt like he was sitting in a high-speed car. The light passed through the glass and continuously brushed across the man's thin yet handsome face. Big brother, it's almost here. A thick bass broke this beauty, but at the same time, it also made Ye Gengyi's consciousness in his dream feel a bit uneasy. Big brother. What era is this called? He doesn't remember having friends who love to joke. Just as Ye Gengyi tried to open his eyes, the bass beside his ear spoke again. Do you want to wake him up now? It turns out you're not talking to me. Ye Gengyi felt his eyelids particularly heavy, which only slightly distracted him. His eyes, which had just narrowed a gap, closed again. Oh, let him sleep. He was able to build a dark web for the organization for 7 consecutive days and 7 nights. No wonder that one is so interested in him. The smell of tobacco and a cold, bone-piercing sound came from directly behind Ye Gengyi, causing his muscles to instinctively tighten. Icewine, have you been disturbed? The person in the back seat seems particularly sensitive to such subtle movements. Icewine. Icewine. Have you just attended some crazy party? The swelling in the depths of the skull and eyes, as well as dry lips, are indeed symptoms of staying up late or indulging in revelry. But what the hell is building a dark web? Did you drink a broken piece? Ye Gengyi frowned with some disgust. He didn't like this discomfort. Why don't you speak? The cold voice continued. Although Ye Gengyi remained calm, the person clearly had confidence in his judgment ability. The atmosphere inside the car suddenly became tense. What the hell is going on? It keeps people from sleeping. Ye Gengyi worked hard to half open his eyes, adapted to the light, and met the owner of the sound through the rearview mirror. However, the just prepared complaint was completely forgotten by the owner with long golden hair after seeing it. What situation? His thoughts were somewhat confused. Looking away from the rearview mirror. In the driver's seat, a sturdy black hat man wearing sunglasses came into view. Good eye familiarity and so on. I must have opened my eyes in the wrong way. Ye Gengyi repeated his confirmation action again and finally couldn't help but say, Gin. Vodka. Ice, what's wrong with you? The execution power of Chin wine can be said to be very fast. Before asking this question, he had already taken out the pistol under the windbreaker. After confirming that no tracking vehicles or suspicious items were found around, Ye Gengyi immediately cast his gaze on Ye Gengyi, who had an abnormal reaction. It's nothing, I'm feeling drowsy. Ye Gengyi lowered his voice, and after a moment of surprise, he found that his throat was also somewhat hoarse due to fatigue. Fortunately, it was because of this that his tone when he just shouted out the code names of the two did not show too much emotion. After a moment of silence, Chin Jiu suddenly said. Vodka, pull over. Ye Gengyi's heart tightened as he half opened his eyes and looked into the rearview mirror, trying to see something from his indifferent face. Whether it's a dream or reality now, in his impression, this man named Shinjio is not easy to get along with. The black Porsche slowly parked on the roadside. Ye Gengyi looked in the rearview mirror, Shinjio looked at Ye Gengyi, and Vodka looked anxiously at the cars passing by outside the window. Parking on a circular road is very dangerous. If you happen to encounter a patrol car coming up to inquire about the situation, it's not good. The three people in the car are all eerily quiet. There was a moment of silence. Vodka couldn't hold its breath at first. Big brother, over at Delicacies Park. Let's talk about that later. Shinjio put the gun back into his coat pocket. Icewine, your current state is not suitable for us to act together. Go rest. Does this mean getting yourself off the car? Ye Gengyi was hesitant, but he didn't say a word more about gin and vodka until he silently got off the car. Porsche starts again. On the car. Big brother, Icewine looks strange. He seemed surprised when he looked at us just now. Vodka is a silly and rare truth. Shinjio's mind flashed with a figure of him working tirelessly in front of a computer, sneering. Oh, his brain is precious. If he turns into an idiot, it would also be a significant loss for the organization. However, let the useless guy disappear so that it won't cause any trouble to people. Big brother. Vodka felt that this sentence was somewhat insinuating, but there was no evidence. Don't worry about Icewine. I didn't plan to have him act together this time, and that one also instructed him to rest well. Vodka hesitated for a moment, as if she had thought of something and was about to speak. Shinjio. He, as long as the chairman cooperates well, there is no need to worry about being caught in the face by the camera. And just in case, I also brought that and can handle problems very cleanly. No big brother, speaking of cleanliness, Icewine seems to have just come out of the research room without any money on her. Chin wine. Another place. Ye Gengyi, who was thrown on the roadside, was very sad. Although it may not be a wise choice to think about problems on this flowing road, he just can't help but think about life. How did I fall to this point? Earlier, due to progress in product development, I took nanocapsules while lying in my dormitory. However, I hadn't seen the results yet. When I woke up, I was called Icewine by two guys who seemed to be a distillery official. I couldn't figure out the situation, so I wore a thin, dark black casual suit and stood on the roadside without even a coat. After checking the only pocket on my body, there was nothing else there except for a phone. The most crucial thing is, mobile phones don't seem to be the type that allows for online payments. Gone. Although he didn't want to admit it, Ye Gengyi now regrets it. Why did he get off the car in a daze just now? Ye Gengyi used a randomly selected lucky skin on his arm to verify that he was not dreaming. So now, is it time to travel? In this world where people can die at any time, Ye Gengyi is very worried about his personal safety. With the appearance of gin and wine, can Conan still be far away? He instinctively looked around, searching for the figure of a certain god of death. Just as he was lost in thought, a yellow beetle parked beside him. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Integrating murder events into daily life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Integrating murder events into daily life. Balding, round face, big nose. As the car window falls, Ye Gengyi saw one of the classic characters of the protagonist group, Dr. Ashi. At this moment, Dr. Ashikaga was also surprised. Professor Ye. I thought I had mistaken the person. When did you come to Japan? Dr. Ashikaga actually knows himself. Ye Gengyi's eyes lit up. Isn't a ride coming? Of course, he still paid attention to whether there were anyone else in the car. However, when it comes to Delicacies Park, which was just mentioned in Vodka, it seems that the first stick of a famous detective has not yet been struck. It hasn't been long since we arrived. Ye Gengyi hesitated and opened the car door to sit in. He didn't guess wrong, and in the face of such behavior, Dr. Aguri didn't mind at all, still enthusiastic. Professor Ye, should we go eat something together? Reunion after a long separation, great love is hard to overcome. Ye Gengyi's answer was relatively brief. Although Dr. Ashi has a high IQ, there is clearly a bias towards certain subjects. Before encountering a certain elementary school student with a grim reaper, it is necessary for him to master some basic information. For example, one's apparent identity background. After all, being thrown into the dark at the beginning makes life difficult. Upon hearing Ye Gengyi speak, Dr. Agai expressed great pressure. Originally, his friends met and it happened to be lunchtime, so it was normal to invite him. But what did he mean by those 8 words just now? Why can't you mess with yourself right from the beginning? Professor Ye, I don't know much about Chinese culture. What did you mean by that sentence you just said? If you don't understand, ask. Dr. Agai will never insist. To express gratitude for the warm hospitality of the doctor, after all, we haven't seen each other for a while, have we? Ye Gengyi probed. Ha ha ha. Upon hearing the gratitude, Dr. Agai smiled happily and curved his eyes. I see, those words actually mean that. By the way, Professor Ye, I know there's a Western restaurant that tastes good. Do you want to try it? Ye Gengyi nodded and said. Doctor, just call me even better. Then I'm not polite. However, speaking of which, it's been a month since we last met at the International Exchange Conference, and Professor Ye is even more so. I thought you had returned to your home country. It's only been a month. Ye Gengyi is very speechless, so short. Fortunately, Conan is not here, and Dr. Agai doesn't understand the meaning of reunion after a long separation. Otherwise, his self-destructing speech would at least receive a sharp gaze. Just like this, how could he still use a long-lost tone to inquire about intelligence? The time interval is not enough at all. With Dr. Ashikaga's enthusiastic heart, if he knew he had lost his memory, he might not have eaten anything, so he called the police and played an ambulance duet, making it clear for himself. It's quite scary to think about. The plan to gather intelligence has run aground, let's find another opportunity. Ye Gengyi decisively gave up. This matter cannot be rushed. At the same time, Dr. Ashikaga's speed is not in a hurry. The 20-minute journey was driven by him for over an hour. Because halfway through, Ye Gengyi noticed a strange noise coming from the car's engine. The Golden Turtle car broke down on a daily basis, as if it had been calculated, and happened to stop in front of a villa in the city. Coordinate Mihua Town. Dr. Ashikaga's home. Wow, that's great. Dr. Ashi let out a sigh of relief. Ye Gengyi expressed understanding that this should be caused by some kind of setting or other rules. After all, the genius who could invent a multifunctional skateboard couldn't believe that making a new energy vehicle for oneself would be quite bizarre. Cough cough. Opening the hood, a thick smoke rolled out. Dr. Agai coughed and wiped away the dust from his face, regretfully announcing, it seems we can only walk over. Ye Gengyi had no objection. After taking a few steps with Dr. Ashi, he turned around to look at the mercilessly abandoned Golden Turtle car and asked, is it okay to leave it here? It's okay, I've already called the towing company, and someone will come and take it for repair soon. Ye Gengyi remained silent. Discovered a hidden tycoon. In fact, if conditions permit, he can also fix problems of this level, but compared to this, being able to fill his stomach as soon as possible is the top priority. I walked for about 10 minutes again, as the saying goes, good and bad depend on each other. When they bypassed the construction road and arrived at a Western restaurant called Columbus, they happened to have an empty table. Take your seat and order your meal. On the recommendation of Dr. Ashi, Ye Gengyi also ordered a special dish. Yi Jiao. Oh no, even more. Dr. Ashi asked with a smile, I have been reading your article on radio wave encryption and reception materials for a long time, and I happen to be researching a miniature intercom device recently. Although he has no memory, when it comes to the research field he is already good at, Ye Gengyi also has the impulse to discuss with each other. With ease and without much concern, he also developed a strong interest in the technological tree of the world of science and technology after hiding the unease he had experienced through time. The man in front of me, though Kudo Shinichi complained that everything he invented was junk, Ye Gengyi never thought so. Ah! In a lively atmosphere of conversation. Suddenly, a scream piercing through the eardrums shattered their conversation. Immediately after the commotion, words and phrases continued to be passed down. What happened? It seems that someone in the restroom has been killed. No culprit found. The restaurant has already called the police. Why is this happening? Why did I encounter such a thing? Ye Gengyi blinked in surprise. Is this development not right? Is there also a spot for Dr. Aguri in the throne of the god of death? One more thing. Seeing Ye Gengyi frowning and thinking deeply, Dr. Ali did not know that the goods were roast about himself. Don't you go and have a look. Me. Ye Gengyi extended his index finger towards his nose. Are you joking? Are you treating yourself like Shinichi Kudo? Before figuring out some things, he should be low-key now, and the last thing he should do is get involved with the case and the police. Just as he was about to refuse, a strange text suddenly appeared in front of him, not obstructing his vision, but allowing him to see the content clearly. Trigger Columbus Restaurant Murder Card, Task Requirement. Stop guests who are preparing to leave, assist the police in solving the case, capture the suspect, and find the missing weapon. Task Reward. Incomplete memory, current progress is 0%. Incomplete memory, he, who can quickly accept time travel, did not show much surprise at the eerie text on his retina, golden finger. Moreover, the words related to memory in the reward made it impossible for him to refuse. True Fragrance fingers scratched the tip of his nose, and Ye Gengyi stood up, leaving a sentence. Of course, it was his duty. Under Dr. Aguri's expression of saying something again, he quickly ran to the entrance of the restaurant. There, several waiters were very anxious, but helplessly watched as guests left one by one. This guest, please do not. As Ye Gengyi rushed out of the store, the waiter weakly lowered his arm. When feeling depressed and facing complaints from the police and a headache-inducing portrait description. A few minutes later, Ye Gengyi ran back with his phone, followed by 3 guests who had already left earlier. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Meat foam and spicy sauce are not just delicacies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Meat foam and spicy sauce are not just delicacies. Did this product steal someone else's phone? The waiter looked at Ye Gengyi with a wary expression, with a handsome appearance of 7 points and 8 points. If a portrait description of this face is needed, there will definitely be no problem. However, it seems that the 3 guests who were chasing him back wouldn't have let him run away so easily. Hey! Stinky kid, quickly delete the photo for me. A rugged-looking man was the first to chase after him. I warn you that if the photos are circulated, you will bear legal responsibility. Next was a woman with short golden hair and dressed in JK. The third skinny man wearing glasses was running the most heavily, panting heavily. Seeing that the previous 2 had put down their harsh words, he seemed to have nothing to say and could only stare at Ye Gengyi silently. Although eye-catching, it is also the most effective way to prevent guests from leaving. Delete the photo. Why? After noticing the crowd gathering, Ye Gengyi calmly held his phone flat in front of the 3 people and displayed the only 3 selfies in the album. Is it illegal to look handsome? I really owe you a beating. The crowd preparing to watch the excitement burst into laughter. Turns out this guy went to take selfies in front of someone else. The rugged man blushed all over his face and took a step forward, grabbing Ye Gengyi's collar and scolding, "You're looking for death, kid. I advise you not to do this, it will break." What will break? Is it the collar or your own hands? The rough man only felt a chill in his neck, and a wave of fear surged in his heart. That's right. Ye Gengyi rubbed the center of his eyebrows. The sense of unfamiliarity just now has returned. Casually patting away the Han's hands, Ye Gengyi turned to look at the other two and said. And you too, although I haven't taken any photos, the people here probably remember your appearance. If you don't want the police to find your workplace, it's better to stay for a while. His words also served as a warning to those who had thoughts of leaving. If you leave now, there is suspicion. No one is willing to find themselves uninteresting. After the scene is under control. A obese middle-aged man who claimed to be the restaurant manager ran over in a hurry. Bowing and apologizing to all the guests, wiping away the sweat rolling down his forehead, he came to Ye Gengyi and Dr. Ashi and lowered his voice. Thank you so much. If the killer runs away, this restaurant will be finished. Ye Gengyi pondered this sentence and instantly understood it. In the world of science, crime rates and admiration for detectives are both high. If a restaurant with a history of murder is caught on the spot, it will attract a large number of customers due to its popularity and topic. Of course, if the killer is not caught, then we can only face dismal performance. Mainly the three of them, don't let them go until the police come. Ye Gengyi will say this later. In addition to the 10% progress bar added to the event card, there are also changes in the order of those three people. It's really amazing. The main reason why he was able to catch up with the three people quickly was because the three little black people were too eye-catching on the street. As for where the black skin they shed again after returning to the restaurant went, it can only be attributed to the scope of Kushue. The restaurant manager nodded quickly. The ability to control the situation and the commanding demeanor of commanding people from above, the man in front of me must be the legendary detective. Omega, this is a great opportunity to make the restaurant famous. The restaurant manager, who has been plagued by a lot of detective news for a long time, thinks so. No, sir. Would you like to take a look at the crime scene? Ye Gengyi was a bit confused about the restaurant manager's sudden respectful attitude, but he still had to go to the crime scene. Violence and bloodshed have never been the mainstream in this world, but there is also no shortage of people who dare to create them. Minced meat and spicy sauce. This is Ye Gengyi's first thought after seeing the forehead of the deceased being smashed. The deceased lay on the ground like this. If you look closely, the shattered white bones under the bright red are equally eye-catching. The perpetrator had great strength and was killed in one blow. The thoughts that popped up in Ye Gengyi's mind left him somewhat confused. It is reasonable to say that these should not be in his knowledge reserve. Touching objects at the scene of a murder at will is an unwise choice. Ye Gengyi withdrew his gaze and said. Anyway, let's stabilize the guests first and wait for the police to come. After a while, the sound of police sirens came from outside the restaurant. Hey, you guys! Who let you in? The crowd gave way to a path. Several unidentified uniforms, A, B, and C, scattered around to collect information. Then, two suspected detectives walked in. The reason why it is suspected is that only one of them is wearing a police uniform, while the other is wearing a gray suit. To Ye Gengyi's surprise, the criminal police officer named Mumu 13 in his memory did not appear. Hey, what do you do and what is your relationship with the deceased? The scene in front of us, even the police officers who are used to seeing the murder scene, are a bit uncomfortable. Therefore, the only person in the field who remained calm and was closest to the body, Ye Gengyi, naturally became a suspect. Detective, officer, he's a detective. The restaurant manager showed a look of how you could treat a detective like this. Oh. Are you a detective again? However, entry is not allowed here. Could you please tell us what you saw? The two police officers exchanged a glance, their tone noticeably softened a lot, but in principle, they still asked Ye Gengyi to leave the restroom. Before coming, they received a call from the Mumu Police Department, which seemed to indicate that a homicide had also occurred at a certain amusement park, so they were the ones who took control of the scene. However, it is different from past experience. Previously, they were pleasantly surprised to hear that no one had left the restaurant after inquiring with the waiter. "Are you a police officer?" Ye Gengyi said to the gray suit man who had been asking questions among the detectives. "Novice, right. You're not wearing a police uniform, should you show the police manual as soon as possible? This common sense mistake will make you very passive in the next inquiry." "Ah." The gray suit officer was taken aback. Ye Gengyi continued. "Because your face is not a very imposing type, there should be a limit to confusion. In case the real culprit is asked halfway by you and then asks who you are, wouldn't it be embarrassing to take out the police manual at that time?" "Ah, I'm sorry, people." The gray suit police officer hurriedly pulled out the police manual and solemnly unfolded it in front of Ye Gengyi, saying, "My surname is Gao Mu, and I am a police officer from the Criminal Investigation Department of the Police Department who forcibly commits the search for the 3rd Department Patrol. Please give me more guidance." Ye Gengyi covered his forehead and waved his hand to Officer Takagi in a very depressed manner. He couldn't expect this guy anymore. Anyway, Officer Takagi was about to speak, but was preemptively spoken by Ye Gengyi. "In short, the prisoner should be one of the 3 people who have been looking over there with strange eyes. As for the other guests, I suggest you make a simple record to release them." "Ah. The 3 of them. Why?" Officer Takagi expressed his doubts, but his body honestly approached the 3 of them. Looking at the progress bar still stuck at the 10% position, Ye Gengyi had no choice but to explain. "Because I noticed that the entire restaurant, apart from the deceased, only the 3 of them took the longest time to go to the restroom. There were no witnesses because the real culprit was waiting for the opportunity, and you didn't notice where the most critical weapon went." Of course, he didn't want to say much about the scenes of the 3 little black people, otherwise the atmosphere he had created earlier would completely collapse. After all, he doesn't want to be sent to a mental hospital yet. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Baldness must be due to excessive brain supplementation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Baldness must be due to excessive brain supplementation. That's right. Officer Takagi, Deduyan. Reminded by Ye Gengyi, he finally realized something was wrong. The weapon that could cause such a degree of depression in the skull was not something that an ordinary knife or dagger could do. Preliminary judgment suggests that it should be a blunt object such as a hammer. "Could you 3 please take out your personal belongings? We need a routine inspection." Officer Takagi thought he had caught a blind spot. If one can lead a team to solve a case, it would be a significant achievement. I dare not think about a promotion or salary increase, but if Officer Sato could pat his shoulder and say, "Takagi, you have quite a set of tricks." That's also a small step towards bringing the relationship closer. I really feel very motivated when I think about it. Ye Gengyi has reservations about Gao Kishi's optimism, as since it is a disappearing weapon, it may not be so easy to find. As expected, at a dining table, looking at the items carried by the 3, Officer Takagi once again fell into contemplation. In the rough man's leather bag, there are thousands of yen, a phone, and a large string of keys. In JK's blonde girl's bag, there are several credit cards and a bunch of unnamed cosmetics. The skinny man was even more so, carrying nothing but a withered wallet. Officer Takagi picked up the large chain of keys that could still be considered a murder weapon, and looked at the rugged physique of the man with a flash of inspiration. "I know. You must exercise regularly with your body shape. If you hold this key and smash it at the victim's head." As Officer Takagi spoke these words, Ye Gengyi had already shifted his gaze from the items on the table to the crime scene. The fact that no murder weapon was found is indeed very concerning. He has informed the police officers responsible for identification and search that all 3 of them have left the restaurant, but within a maximum radius of 50 meters, no suspicious items have been found yet, which is quite strange. "Hello, officer. Are you joking? If I smash the key, my hand will also be injured, right?" Officer Takagi seemed to have identified the culprit, the burly and powerful man, and continued. Can you throw these keys out like a discus? Upon hearing this, Ye Gengyi couldn't help but look back and throw a discus. If you weren't a criminal police officer, they might have thrown you directly. Not to mention whether I can throw out this string of keys with such destructive power, blood stains. There should be blood stains on the keys, right? The rugged man has already begun to roar. You can wash the bloodstains, Ye Gengyi said the line of Officer Takagi first. In Takagi's expression, right. I said right, however, the traces that should have been produced when recycling the keys were not found on site. I'm right, brother forensic. This strange drag mark should have been left on the ground by the killer while dragging the weapon, but the shape of the weapon doesn't look like that string of keys. With the recognition of the forensic officer, the rough man finally breathed a sigh of relief. Officer Takagi is puzzled. But no suspicious items were found on the other two suspects' bodies, and their bodies did not seem to be able to easily deal with an adult man. This is also where Ye Gengyi was puzzled, and he changed his thinking. By the way, haven't you brought the lumino reagent? Although the requirement of the incident card is to first assist the police in finding the missing weapon, if a blood reaction can be detected from someone and the identity of the perpetrator can be confirmed, it is not a problem to ask about the weapon and the modus operandi. Result, because there has also been a case at the Mu Police Department, the officer carrying the lumino reagent has not returned yet. Officer Takagi hesitated and said, otherwise, we should bring all three of them back to the station first. No way. Why is this happening? Are you treating us like murderers? The three of them were all very excited. Looking at Officer Takagi's helpless expression, Ye Gengyi expressed satisfaction. After all, the incident card clearly states that he is needed to assist the police in solving the case. How can the suspect obtain the reward on the event card after being taken away? But where could the murder weapon be? Ye Gengyi looked at the several people arguing over there. My gaze swept over the rugged man, the thin man, and finally landed on the leg of the woman wearing JK. There seems to be a scar on her thigh. Cough, even more so. Watching Ye Gengyi's gradually deviating gaze, Dr. Ashi, standing aside, coughed twice. Misleading the police in solving a case is a serious crime. Although Dr. Ashikaga knows Shinichi Kudo, who has a good relationship with the police, if Ye Gengyi's previous words led to the current situation, he must also bear some responsibility. By the way, you can ask Shinichi about this case. Dr. Agai took out his phone and was about to call when he suddenly remembered that the kid seemed to be dating a girl from the Mori family today. He had no choice but to withdraw his hand. Buzzing at this moment, Ye Gengyi's phone also heard a vibrating sound. On the screen, a number without a labeled name is displayed. Hello. Icewine, it's Jin. Ye Gengyi took a few steps to the side. What's going on? Without any memory as a reference, he couldn't figure out what attitude to take, so he just showed the initial indifference. I've encountered some trouble, just in case I need you to invade the amusement park surveillance and replace the footage of me and vodka. Is the problem serious? Ye Gengyi asked knowingly. Although he doesn't have any memory of this body, based on the keyword Dorobica Park, he can still guess that it was probably the roller coaster murder incident. Encountered a little detective who loves to make a name for himself. Chin Jiu suddenly asked, why does it sound so noisy over there? A person was killed in the restaurant, and the suspect is arguing with the police. I will get out as soon as possible, so your matter will take some time. Your luck is also quite bad. That's it for each other, Ye Gengyi sarcastically replied. Call me after handling it. Okay, doodle. After the call ended, the roller coaster murder case that occurred on the side of Chin Jiu woke him up. Ye Gengyi remembers that the technique used by the prisoner was to use the principle of inertia to cut off the head of an adult man. So it's like this. Looking at the scar on JK's woman's leg again, isn't it that the murder weapon has been found? In Ye Gengyi's mind, he had already roughly simulated the killer's method of committing the crime. Although there are certain risks, it is still much easier to achieve than performing acrobatics from a roller coaster. Thinking of him walking towards Officer Takagi, who was in a state of anxiety. Hello, Dr. Aguri was somewhat alarmed when he noticed Ye Gengyi's movements. Did he just take a last glance at someone's thigh? Is that right? What's going on? Are you ready to get started? One more, wait. This cannot be pretended to be ignorant. Dr. Ashikaga's sense of justice exploded. Saving the underperforming youth, it's still in front of the police, right? Even without the police, we cannot do this. Doctor. Ye Gengyi turned his head and was puzzled. He was completely unaware of what Dr. Agai had already made of his brain in these few seconds. That. Dr. Aguri scratched his cheek with his index finger, and his voice caught the attention of Officer Takagi and the three suspects. Furthermore, let's not cause any trouble for the police. But I already know who the culprit is, Ye Gengyi said. Aha, then what are we? You already know. Dr. Agai was surprised. Sir, are you telling the truth? Officer Takagi also looked excited. Ye Gengyi glanced at him sideways and said, Can you restrain yourself? Someone has been killed here. Excuse me, could you please explain in detail? Officer Takagi reflected on himself. Ye Gengyi didn't play any tricks and looked at the blonde girl dressed in JK and said, You're the murderer, right? What? Is she the murderer? Why? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. When your eyes are good, you should look at the scenery more. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. When your eyes are good, you should look at the scenery more. Golden-haired JK's pupil's contract, his expression frantically probing on the edge of self-explosion. What a joke. Seeing everyone looking over, she pretended to be calm and quickly came up with a speech. Didn't you hear that? Just now, the police officer said that the man's cause of death was a heavy blow to the head, one blow to death. Instead of suspecting me, this uncle here is even more suspicious. This woman. The rugged man was once again named and felt very unhappy. He had suffered from both Ye Gengyi and Gao Mushi, and now even a little girl thought he was easy to bully. Just as he was about to shout a reprimand, he was preempted by Ye Gengyi's calm tone. Are you ready to continue doing meaningless things? The rugged man's momentum stagnated. I was stunned for a few seconds before realizing that Ye Gengyi was actually talking to JK woman. And myself, it's quite awkward. Cough, for the sake of this guy helping me clear my suspicion, I won't go crazy anymore. It's not because I'm afraid of something. The rugged man rose up in less than half a second and once again became the background board. How come, why do you all look at me like this? Under the buff bonus pointed out by the detective, the blonde JK appeared even more panicked. So doubt me, do you come up with evidence? Or did you find the weapon that killed that man with me? Everyone turned their faces together again, waiting for Ye Gengyi's answer. That will be found soon. He had just asked the police officer in charge of the search to search for a certain item. But if the killer was her, what techniques could be used to kill an adult man in one blow? Takagi was puzzled. It's stockings. Ye Gengyi looked at JK woman. Put the murder weapon into the stockings and use high speed rotation to generate centrifugal force. With just a little practice, even a child can cause astonishing damage. The scratch on the ground is the one you left when retrieving the murder weapon. As for the bloodstain, you just need to go back to the women's restroom for flushing. JK woman continues to defend. But besides me, there are many people who have just left who can do this technique, and even men can do it with stockings. The scar on your leg is very noticeable. Ye Gengyi mercilessly interrupted, saying that he was not in the mood to listen to the suspect's rebuttal now. This JK woman and the two people over there have both become little black, a classic choice of three. He would only blame the suspect if he found the wrong one. Scar. Everyone's gaze fell on JK's blonde thigh in unison. It's quite white. Takagi blush and hurries away from sight. Scar. What's wrong with scars? Is it time to say this now? By the way, anyone who has a scar on their leg is considered a murderer. Moreover, that scar is clearly an old wound, and it is absolutely impossible for it to be left from the moment of the murder. This cannot be used as evidence, can it? Officer Takagi, didn't you notice that there was a shallow crease on her thigh, which is evidence that she was still wearing stockings not long ago? Hello. Why can you see so clearly? Faced with numerous strange gazes, Ye Gengyi decisively ignored them. He is just a ruthless event card holder. She has a lot of cosmetics in her bag, usually due to some special psychology. If it were newly purchased cosmetics, normal people would never stack them up in such a messy manner. And it's just going out to eat, and she doesn't need to carry so much makeup. That means she has to go somewhere to participate in activities that require makeup after dinner, and I can notice the marks on her thighs because this girl has been trying to lower her skirt to cover it up. If you really care, what's the reason for wearing such a short skirt when going out? That's why I asked her where her stockings are. Judging from her attire, a woman who values her appearance so much probably takes several hours to put on makeup. With such obvious flaws, she shouldn't have forgotten to wear them. Ye Gengyi hit the nail on the head with every paragraph, leaving blonde JK speechless. Even if centrifugal force is used, the weapon that can break the skull is unlikely to have too low hardness. Things like ice or dry ice cannot be preserved, and after much thought, only bones remain. This is a restaurant, and even if the search personnel find bones in the nearby garbage dump, they won't associate them with the weapon. If you're lucky, you don't have to wait until the cleaning personnel the next day. Wild dogs will help you eliminate the weapon. I'm not sure why you chose to kill here, but the noise from construction outside can just cover up the noise you make when you commit the crime. Ye Gengyi paused for a moment and noticed a search officer walking in at the door, saying, "As long as the goal is clear, the kind of stockings that are pulled and deformed seem quite easy to find. Of course, you still have an excuse to evade, such as the stockings not belonging to you. However, in this way, this seemingly friendly police officer may take any measures to turn off the camera in the interrogation room." Hello. I wouldn't do it like that, would I? Officer Takagi crossed 3 black lines on his forehead. Just a joke. Human feet secrete sweat and a small amount of metabolism or dead skin every day. It's not easy to rinse them off with clean water. These can be used for DNA testing, but I don't think they need them anymore. Your expression has already betrayed yourself, Ye said. Upon hearing this, the blonde woman finally covered her face and collapsed, kneeling on the ground. Watching her sobbing uncontrollably, Dr. Aguri whispered, "Even more so, since she's already preparing to kill, why do you still use the stockings she's wearing?" Ye Gengyi looked back at Dr. Agui and said, "Doctor, this kind of idea of helping suspects come up with ideas is very dangerous." Cough. Dr. Ashi felt embarrassed. "It's because the price is very expensive. I only have a pair of stockings that are strong enough. I was originally planning to find a replacement, but unfortunately, those stockings were all broken during my practice." The blonde woman, who had already been adorned with a silver bracelet, showed a slightly stable mood. "That man is the photographer I met at the manga exhibition. After dating for half a year, I realized that he was still unclear about her Kozer. And the savings I used for taking photos were also stolen by him to buy gifts for other women. This man. Alright, let's talk about the rest at the police station," Officer Takagi said in a timely manner. "Mr. Detective, could you also come to the police station to take a statement?" "Okay," Ye Gengyi nodded helplessly as he looked at the 99% progress bar on the event card. With the search and case solving, when Ye Gengyi and his group walked out of the restaurant, it was already dark outside. A gentle breeze blows, and raindrops fall. After counting the heads, Officer Takagi felt a bit embarrassed. 2 police officers need to sit in the back row with the prisoner, and their co-pilot has also been pre-booked by Ye Gengyi. The police officers responsible for identification happen to be a standard 5-person configuration. Dr. Ashi noticed that there seemed to be no available space in the police car and directly stated that his home was very close to here, so he could just run back with a little rain. Professor Ye, if you have time, be sure to come as a guest. Before parting ways, Dr. Ashi solemnly invited Ye Gengyi. Ye Gengyi readily accepted. Not bad, it's a signal to infiltrate the main character group. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Not all guys wearing black clothes are bad people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Not all guys wearing black clothes are bad people. Completed the response. The police car drove slowly. In the car, everyone was very silent. Ye Gengyi looked out the window, but his mind was completely focused on the event card. The supernatural phenomenon located on the retina has been roughly controlled by Ye Gengyi, which gives him a visual experience of playing games and viewing the taskbar. Following this train of thought, he really discovered something amazing. In the rectangular prism composed of peculiar light, a framework suddenly appeared, with dark small grids divided vertically and horizontally, and the one led by it was emitting soft and bright light. Is this Ye Gengyi's heart is beating faster? He pretended to pick up the pen from the car and played with it casually. How can I put it inside? Just as the thought had passed, when the 3 words, put it in, appeared in his mind, Ye Gengyi suddenly felt that his palm and pen were completely fused together. With just a little daze, a thumbnail of a pen appeared in the glowing small grid. Open your palm, it's empty. Ye Gengyi watched this scene and stood there for more than 10 seconds. If used reasonably, this is simply a tool for destroying decisive evidence. Wait, where is it reasonable? It's not right to have such thoughts. During his self-reflection, Ye Gengyi had already mastered the basic usage method in the corner of the car door. It seems to be similar to particle decomposition and recombination, but it is unclear whether it will cause harm to living organisms. Take note of the questions and have the opportunity to verify them. A few minutes later, his gaze drifted towards Officer Takagi. Of course, he hasn't hunted to the point where he wants to fit a living person in. It's all because this guy's driving is too distracting. I don't know what good thing I'm thinking, but if the exaggerated smiling face is seen by passers-by, it may turn into a new urban legend. Hello. Considering life's safety, Ye Gengyi believes it is still necessary to remind him. Officer Takagi snapped back and said, "Ah. What's up? Focus on driving. Thank you." Ye Gengyi died of fisheye. I'm so sorry. As if some secret had been peeked into, Officer Takagi's frantic behavior almost caused a traffic accident. At this moment, Ye Gengyi suddenly remembered riding a Porsche. If vodka is done like this, it will definitely be hit by gin. Well, that doesn't seem like something worth remembering. Ye Gengyi remained silent. The atmosphere is quite awkward. Officer Takagi chuckled and said, "Well, by the way, I don't know what you call it yet." Ye Gengyi. The answer is very brief. Mr. Ye Gengyi, are you a detective from Tokyo? Takagi tried to continue the conversation. Ye Gengyi remained silent for a moment and said, "No, I am a professor in the field of microparticles, and I am from China. My surname is Ye, not Ye Gengyi." Officer Takagi. I'm sorry, but it turns out Mr. Ye is a professor detective. Professor detective. What profession is that? Ye Gengyi is half moon-eyed. But when he thought of high school detectives, foodie detectives, novelist detectives, and so on, he endured it. Let's treat it as if we follow the customs when in Rome under the rain curtain illuminated by neon lights. 2 police cars drove into the brightly lit police station one after another. Criminal police in the world of science are very hard-working, almost non-stop throughout the year. Even during occasional holidays, even a careless person can get involved in a murder case. Ye Gengyi followed behind Officer Takagi, and along the way, he really saw several familiar faces. The person who helped Ye Gengyi make the transcript was Officer Takagi, and the process was not complicated. After all, he was present at the scene throughout the entire process of solving the case. If that well-known Kudo Shinichi were to be admitted, he wouldn't even be able to provide a statement. Ye Gengyi is not concerned about this, he is more concerned about the issue of returning. You know, it's still raining outside, and he doesn't have any money on him. If possible, having Officer Takagi give him a ride is also a good choice. Although his driving skills are terrible, thank you so much, Mr. Ye. Keep the transcripts for record keeping and sealing. Takagi Seiki was preparing to escort Ye Gengyi downstairs when he met a group of sharp-eyed criminal police officers. Walking ahead was a short-haired female police officer, dressed in competent professional attire, who looked very confident. Green leaves surround red flowers. Takagisawa was stunned. Takagi, I heard from the Momo Police Department that you're quite skilled. Miko Sato smiled and patted Takagi's shoulder. I'll treat you to a bento later. Criminal Officer A with a fierce gaze said, yes, Takagi, you can even lead a team to solve a case on your own. Detective B with a fierce gaze. It's hidden and not exposed. Hee hee. Hee hee. What else can I do besides giggling? It's quite urgent to wait online. Ye Gengyi distanced himself from Officer Takagi. How about he borrow an umbrella and go back on his own? Decisively abandoning Officer Takagi, who had been cared for by his seniors, Ye Gengyi came to the door. The rain has stopped. It would be great if I could have a coat to wear. Ye Gengyi remained calm and walked towards Dr. Ashi's house according to the route he remembered. We can't let him sleep on the streets. Just now at the police station, he just glanced at the progress bar on the incident card that reached 100%, without further investigation. Regarding the reading method of incomplete memory, Ye Gengyi is not sure if there will be any adverse reactions. If you perform a scene of crying and covering your forehead in front of the police, it's not something that can be fooled by a second illness in just one sentence. By the way, I also need to call Chinjo. Ye Gengyi took out his phone and dialed back the number in his contact list. We will connect quickly over there. Ye Gengyi adjusted his emotions and said in an indifferent voice, it's me. Chinjo's tone was also cold. It's been quite a while. Ye Gengyi said, I went to the police station and made a record. I just left. Chinjo said, oh. Aren't you showing any horse's feet? Ye Gengyi said, compared to being photographed with a camera, my side is relatively safe. Chinjo sneered, hee hee, you don't need to take action on that matter in case of any unforeseen circumstances. When you were taking notes, the machine that stored the images had already been destroyed. Ye Gengyi. It seems like we didn't win anyway, take your vacation with peace of mind. Doodle doodle damn it, you're tough. Ye Gengyi felt depressed. However, he also found that his identity in the distillery seemed to be no worse than that of Chin Liquor, at least it was okay to talk trash to each other. Power is better than nothing as a comfort. Put the phone back in your pocket. Under the moonlight, Ye Gengyi's black clothes merged with his shadow. Walking in the villa area, there are not many pedestrians on the street. Not far away, there came the voice of a woman speaking. I really like Shinichi, are they Xiaolan and Conan? The two figures, one tall and one short, gradually approached. Ye Gengyi didn't adjust his pace, didn't even turn his head to take a glance, and just passed by. Conan's flushed face suddenly cooled down, holding Xiaolan's hand and looking back at Ye Gengyi's back, his eyes full of solemnity. Conan, what's wrong with you? Conan, Xiaolan felt her arms sink and lowered her head to find Conan standing still. Are you an accomplice of those guys? No, it wouldn't be so coincidental, would it? Conan, are you listening to me? A face with long horns and delicate features stood between the backs of Conan and Ye Gengyi. Ah, Sister Xiaolan, Conan's face turned red. Close. Too close. What are you thinking? Is there anything strange about that person just now? Xiaolan tilted her head in confusion. No, it's nothing. Conan quickly changed his face and put on a naive look. Sister Xiaolan, let's go. At the same time, the fear made him suppress the impulse of his heart and decide not to reveal his true identity to Xiaolan for the time being. These black-clothed guys, I must trace your lair and completely uproot you. A shrinking detective secretly made up his mind. Ache. In front of gate 22, Mihuacho 2.chom, Ye Gengyi tightened his collar and complained, this outfit is really too thin. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Creativity is childlike fun from the deep inspiration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Creativity is childlike fun from the deep inspiration. The night is already deep. Through the gap in the iron railing, one can see that the lights are still on in the villa. Although there was a big hole on the wall next to it, out of courtesy, Ye Gengyi still pressed the doorbell. Ding rumble at the same time, an explosion occurred in the villa. Degree. What is the situation? Is this the button for the detonator? Speaking of which, what was the idea of installing this dangerous thing here? When conducting biochemical experiments, do we imitate D.level personnel and sacrifice ourselves? In an instant, Ye Gengyi thought a lot. However, when he saw Dr. Aguri crawling out of the smoke with a disheveled face, he realized that it was just a strange prop that happened to explode. No wonder there are many villas nearby, but there aren't many residents. The neighbor is an inventor who always provides such surprises. They didn't turn into Little Black in a fit of anger. Perhaps it's the world's greatest kindness to Dr. Aguri. Watching Dr. Aguri sitting on the ground panting, holding the rescued equipment. Ye Gengyi hesitated for a moment and walked in, stepping on the broken bricks. Doctor, are you okay? Upon hearing someone speak, Dr. Aguri lifted his head. Due to his glasses being blown off, he could only vaguely see that the other person was a tall man in black. No way. Dr. Aguri's whole body was filled with excitement, thinking of the black-clad men who were feeding Shinichi the slimming medicine. Jew. Surprisingly, I found this place so quickly. Is it difficult? Xiaolan and Sini, who just left, have already. Damn it. Dr. Aguri stood up in anger and was about to give it a desperate blow. As a result, the unidentified instrument in his arms was very disrespectful. He didn't know what was on the ground when he pulled it, and it twisted to his waist. Click. There is a kind of pain that even sounds painful. Dr. Aguri's tears were painful. Doctor, what are you doing? Ye Gengyi was flattered and surprised. Did he really feel so excited to see him visit? Well, it seems that the request for accommodation will not be rejected. Ouch. Ouch, my waist. Dr. Agui lay on the ground, wailing in agony. Ye Gengyi quickly said, don't move yet, I'll go find the ice pack. At this point, it is necessary to show one's considerate side. Although Dr. Aguri has a strong physique that is only slightly scratched in the face of an explosion, he has a short cannibalistic mouth and plans to stay overnight. What? Why is it a tone of concern? Are killer organizations so humane now? Dr. Aguri reluctantly turned his head, tears acting as lenses in his eyes, allowing him to see clearly that the man in black was actually Ye Gengyi. It's even more consistent. There's an ice pack in the refrigerator, please, Dr. Agui said in frustration. What's going on? What black clothes should I wear if I have nothing to do? My waist is quite twisted. After a long delay, Dr. Agui returned to his bedroom with the help of Ye Gengyi. Ye Gengyi, using the excuse of not being reassured by the doctor himself, successfully stayed behind. Thank you very much, even more so. We still need to thank you here. Regarding the matter of the man in black, Dr. Ashi did not mention a word. He was completely unaware that the man in front of him was also a member of the black organization and a cadre with a code name. Ye Gengyi nodded slightly, his gaze fixed on the instrument he had brought in with him. I didn't study carefully from the yard before, so it's inconvenient to speak. After observing from his professional perspective, he is still confused. Because, how can this thing look like a shaved ice? Shaved ice will explode. No, it's definitely not that simple. Ye Gengyi was lost in deep thought. Is it true that the technology tree in the world of Kushui is so far from the knowledge he has mastered? I can't even tell what an instrument does. Ye Gengyi frowned. Bold analysis, this thing that is suspected to be a rotary table and a shaved ice. Maybe Dr. Aguri noticed the instruments on the ground. Oh, that's great. You've also brought in a multi-function shaved ice, which has helped me a lot. But my waist is very painful now, or I will let you have a taste of my skill. Ye Gengyi. It's really a shaved ice. Why does shaved ice explode? Speaking of which, when I just took the ice bag, the refrigerator was full of ice cubes and fruit juice. Is it really for eating shaved ice? Gone, is this guy a genius? Why is it so boring? Looking at Dr. Ashi, who was smiling foolishly, he shook even more. How about he call Chinjo now and sell Conan and Dr. Ashley directly? But when I thought about how Chinjo had just attacked me, let's help the red side make your blonde hair turn white earlier. My thoughts turned back. After confirming that his vision was not wrong, Ye Gengyi continued to ask his doubts. Doctor, why did it explode? Well. Because I added a small detonator on the top of it. Think about it. It's beautiful to listen to insects, eat shaved ice, and watch fireworks after shaved ice is made. Dr. Ali looked forward to it. Ye Gengyi tugged at the corner of his mouth twice, unable to say a word. You won. Dr. Aguri continued to immerse himself in his own world. My invention is sure to sell well, maybe become a billionaire. Doctor, why don't we talk about the intercom device? Ye Gengyi promptly corrected the topic. If we let the organization know that he is studying a shaved ice that can set off fireworks, I'm afraid his name will not be on the next execution list. Well, I encountered some difficulties. Simple people's emotions change quickly, and when it comes to this matter, Dr. Ashi is clearly a bit depressed. Ye Gengyi was curious, what kind of difficulty is it? The radio wave encryption algorithm you mentioned in your paper seems difficult to implement. So far, I have tried many wave frequencies, but haven't found one that meets the requirements. Yeah, if that's the case, the security level will decrease. Short-distance communication is fine, but medium to long-distance communication will definitely be intercepted. Ye Gengyi held his chin and was also thinking about this issue. That paper was not written by him, to be precise, it was not written by his current consciousness. But regarding the content, Ye Gengyi had already discussed it with Dr. Agai while eating at the Columbus restaurant. There must be. Ye Gengyi firmly believes. Because long-distance eavesdropping devices and detective armbands are both things that have appeared in this world, and with the strength of distilleries, they cannot trace the signal source based on the signal, so the so-called encryption algorithm must exist. Doctor, is it convenient for me to use the computer? Imagination is unintentional, but it still requires practice. Ah. Of course I can, but it's already so late now. Otherwise, tomorrow. It's okay, let's finish today. Dr. Ashikaga. He is saying something I don't know what he means again. Watching Ye Gengyi open the bedroom computer, Dr. Agai thought to himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. About the things to do when you wake up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. About the things to do when you wake up. Ye Gengyi works very seriously. This body and original habits quickly led him to devote himself to researching encryption algorithms for radio waves. Pop 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 pop. The sound of fingers tapping on the keyboard and mouse is quite rhythmic. It sounds very pleasant to the ear. Before long, Dr. Aguri let out a slight snoring sound. The next morning. 7 o'clock. When Dr. Aguri opened his eyes in a daze, he saw Ye Gengyi still sitting in front of the computer, as if his posture had not changed. He was startled. It's been a sleepless night, isn't it? More consistent. Dr. Ashi scratched his cheek and slept while letting a guest stay up late for research, which seemed somewhat unreasonable. Ye Gengyi's gaze shifted away from the densely packed numbers on the screen, and after confirming that Dr. Aguri was not talking in his sleep, he stood up to greet him. Doctor, you're awake. Breakfast is in the incubator, I'll go help you get it. Oh, surprisingly, he even made breakfast. Soybean milk, steamed eggs, sausages, and a plate of fruit salad. The happiest thing after waking up, besides not having to work, is having someone bring breakfast to their mouth. Dr. Aguri was deeply moved. This waist is not twisted in vain. Doctor, do you still have pain in your waist? Ye Gengyi expressed concern. It's not a big deal anymore, Dr. Aguri continued to be moved. Professor Ye is really a good person. That's good then, my physical fitness is indeed very strong. Ye Gengyi thought that there was a chance to conduct research on whether these acrobatic roller coasters, those who smashed cement with bare hands, and those who physically shook and exploded were actually made of meat. But since it doesn't hurt anymore, doctor, please calculate these data after finishing. Ye Gengyi placed a thick stack of printing materials next to breakfast. Dr. Aguri, who was eating steamed eggs, almost choked on the egg yolk. Looking at a calculation manuscript with over 20 pages. The sausages on the plate suddenly became less fragrant. Give him back his emotions, you bastard. Numerical calculations are tedious, but undoubtedly a way to pass time. The two of them cooperated harmoniously, and Ye Gengyi truly witnessed the side of this doctoral genius. If he were to be incorporated into the organization, it would be a significant contribution to the research of the scientific world's technology tree. Ye Gengyi thought, but his position was a bit off-center. As a soul of the new era, besides being unable to overcome staying up late, I am still very disciplined about filling my stomach. With Ye Gengyi present, they didn't miss a single meal of their 3 meals. I don't know how long it has been. Finally, after another data model was incorporated into the formula, Dr. Aguri smiled with relief as he could see the answer. Successful. Surprisingly, they were really able to figure it out. Doctor, do you need me to help you go to the research room? It's time for practice. Ye Gengyi's indifferent voice directly pulled Dr. Aguri back to reality. Dr. Ashikaga. Is this child having some problems? No need for your help, I can walk on my own. Dr. Aguri angrily opened the bedroom door. Looking at Dr. Aguri's brisk gait, Ye Gengyi stated that research on how to carry explosions with the body should be put on the agenda as soon as possible. Come to the basement. Ye Gengyi was instantly attracted to a device. Lithography machine. It seems that he still has some misunderstandings about Dr. Aguri's financial resources. He is not a tycoon, but a god of wealth. Doctor, this, Ye Gengyi felt it necessary to have a detailed understanding. If conditions permit, he doesn't mind joining the FBI's witness protection program. Is it not good to beat soy sauce when you have nothing to do, and it doesn't smell good to just stay in the research room on weekdays? Dr. Ashi looked over and said, a lithography machine. Oh, it was a gift from a friend abroad because I helped him last time. So is the furnace for smelting metals. Ye Gengyi had a good look in his eyes. As the incandescent lamps lit up in rows, he noticed the deepest furnace with a 5,000-degree mark. Dr. Ashi continued, well, the last time I went abroad, it was also my friend. Dr. Aguri. Ye Gengyi looked serious and said, "May I ask if they still lack friends?" Dr. Ashikaga. This kid is quite humorous. The idle talk comes to an end. Dr. Ashikaga took out the demeanor of the homeowner and led Ye Gengyi on a general tour of the research laboratory. After circling around, I had a deep impression on Ye Gengyi. Simply put, using these devices to make detective armbands is very talented. The equipment is so complete. In order to prevent unnecessary mistakes, it seems that I should go take a nap first and rest up before proceeding. After selecting the metal, Ye Gengyi rubbed his temples. Speaking of which, from time to time, it seems that he hasn't really had a good night's sleep yet. This genetic madness also made him certain that the cause of the disappearance of the original consciousness body was probably sudden death. That's right, even more. You should go rest now. Coincidentally, I need to help my friend make a small prop and give me the metal smelting. With a lot of data support, Dr. Aguri suddenly had a sudden idea. Kudo Shinichi has been turned into a child. Since he wants to investigate the black organization, he also needs to provide some assistance from his side. Ye Gengyi nodded slightly. His physical condition was indeed very poor, and he also needed to collect the reward for the incomplete memory of the event card as soon as possible. Then please, doctor. Leave the basement. Lying in bed, Ye Gengyi called out the event card on his retina. After the 100% progress bar, there is indeed an additional claim sign. At the moment of consciousness passing by, the event card emitted fluorescence. At the same time, Ye Gengyi felt as if something new had appeared in his mind. White coat, incandescent lamp, snow. White walls and floors. Rows of computers and various instruments and equipment no less than those in Dr. Ashikaga's basement. Various accents and languages surround his ears. In a daze. Everyone in the picture becomes very strange, and the scene is infinitely elongated. Ye Gengyi was not sure when he fell asleep. He felt like he had a long dream. After waking up, it was already dark outside. On the retina, the previous Colombian murder card has completely disappeared, with an additional line of text added at the topmost position. Event card count. 1. Is it something novel again? Ye Gengyi pondered, but there was one more important matter at the moment. He took out his phone and opened a hidden folder, where was the monitoring software he had developed for the organization, although it was not activated. In my memory, many peripheral members of the organization had their phones equipped with this software. So what about cadres like them? Ye Gengyi believes that gentleman can never let capable members go unchecked, and loyalty to the organization relies solely on self-awareness. No, we need to check root permissions. Ye Gengyi pressed the shutdown button. Just before the phone screen went black, a call came in. Ye Gengyi stared blankly at the completely closed phone. The ending number just now seems to be the boss's phone number. It's done. End of this chapter. Chapter 9 Answer. The life that detectives cannot lack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Answer. The life that detectives cannot lack. The bedroom is very quiet. Ye Gengyi held his phone with a solemn expression. Turn on the phone immediately and call back. If the other party asks about the reason for shutting down the phone, is it difficult to say that the phone is out of battery? You should know that he has only been away from the research laboratory for less than 2 days, and during this time, he only talked to Chinjio on the phone. Before shutting down, he glanced at the remaining battery, which was about 3/4. These pieces of information are not difficult to infer, as the organization is eager to uncover traitors and there is no need for him to take the risk of lying. Ye Gengyi thought for a moment. Suddenly, I heard someone outside the door shouting the name, Shinichi. Needless to say, it must be Conan who came to get the bow voice changer. At this point, Ye Gengyi had to temporarily give up his plan to turn on the phone. He was now certain that as long as he called, Conan would accidentally hear it. Ye Gengyi didn't guess wrong. As he pushed open the bedroom door and walked out, on the sofa in the living room, a young man with glasses wearing a blue suit and a red bow tie immediately looked towards him alertly. Oh no, I forgot Gengyi was sleeping in the bedroom. I just called Shinichi's name, but he didn't hear me, did he? Dr. Aguri showed a surprised expression. Ye Gengyi looked at his expression and couldn't guess what the other person was thinking. Since you know it's dangerous, it's not good to just call Conan on a regular basis this man. It seems like I've seen it somewhere before. Conan's expression was not relaxed either. He vaguely remembered the man in black in front of him, who he had met with Xiaolan on the road that night. The two of them looked at him with solemn expressions, especially Conan's expression, completely different from that of a 7-year-old child. Hey, you two have too many flaws, right? There are many grooves. Ye Gengyi doesn't even know where to start roast. 6 eyes gaze at each other. Watching Conan's gradually changing pupils. Okay, let's just pretend to be silly. Ye Gengyi had no choice but to speak up first. Doctor, is this your child? The tone is flat, like a basin of cold water pouring down one's face. Dr. Ashikaga was startled and said incoherently. Ahahaha, yes, no. No, he's my relative's child. Ye Gengyi nodded and said, this way. How should he answer this? Big brother, haven't we met somewhere before? On this side, Conan's expression was particularly serious. Good kid, I must say something. Long time no see, Shinichi Kudo. Are you satisfied? Ye Gengyi continued his blind eye. How about he also suggest Dr. Aguri to buy a black outfit to wear when he has time? What is your name, child? Ye Gengyi continued to take it over, while speaking and ruthlessly ravaging Conan's hair. It's quite cute, isn't it? Do you want to use clichés? Just treat you as a child and don't answer seriously. Sure enough, for a detective boy with high self-esteem, Ye Gengyi's move was very effective. Ah! Stop it, no. Don't let go, you. It was easy to break free from Ye Gengyi's clutches, and Conan's originally handsome hairstyle had been completely destroyed. Ye Gengyi didn't intend to let him go yet, so he took the cup of water from the coffee table and said calmly. Don't you know your name yet? Be good and drink less water that night, otherwise you'll wet the bed. Conan. Basking dishes, you only wet the bed, your whole family wet the bed. Dr. Aguri couldn't help but laugh as he watched the scene. I never expected that Shinichi would also have today. Ye Gengyi was very satisfied with the changes in Dr. Agai's expression, and as for a certain detective, let him guess. Anyway, Ye Gengyi has no intention of truthfully telling him, because his current position is very awkward. The members of the main character group can be reckless, and he may actually die if he is not careful. Sorry, I can't help but want to tease children, Ye Gengyi said. However, Conan couldn't detect any apology from his tone. Moreover, this guy seems to be talking to Dr. Aguri. Please, it's him who was clearly being teased, okay? Are you really being treated like a child? A named detective who attempted to conceal his true identity is unsure whether to be happy or sad. Dr. Aguri chuckled and said, it's okay, I don't think Conan would mind either. Oh. Little friend, your name is Conan. Ye Gengyi suddenly bent down and looked straight at Kudo Shinichi. Dare to stare at me and scare you to death. Conan nodded heavily and then ran to Dr. Agai's side as if shy. Hello, doctor. Come over here for a moment. Pull and tug in one go. One more thing, you can sit down casually first. Dr. Aguri was pulled aside. The two of them murmured softly. Doctor, what exactly is going on with that person? Are you saying, more one? He is an amazing professor who has gained some fame in the fields of microparticles and software development at a young age. Many tycoons are trying to recruit him, but so far I haven't heard of his intention in this area. So impressive, Conan expressed surprise, does he look less than 25 years old? Dr. Aguri dragged his chin with one hand. Well, in terms of age, I remember it should be 23 years old. At the age of 23, Conan expressed another shock. But doctor, why would such a powerful person appear in your home? Dr. Ashikaga's half-moon eyes said, Hey, Shinichi, why does it sound like you have a strong opinion of me? Why can't he know such a powerful person? Conan's forehead slid down the black line and said, No, doctor. I feel like that guy has something to do with the organization. What? Dr. Aguri was shocked. Ye Gengyi, sitting on the sofa, stared at the newspaper without looking at it. Underscore whatever you do, I can't see or hear. Doctor, please keep your voice down. Conan quickly grabbed Dr. Agai and caught a glimpse of Ye Gengyi focusing on reading the newspaper in his spare time. He quickly said, I just feel, it feels. Don't you think it's strange that such a guy appears here at this time? You said that, Dr. Agai breathed a sigh of relief. I met Gengyi on the roundabout. Speaking of which, you and Xiaolan happened to be going to the amusement park at that time and hadn't been given that kind of medicine by the guy from the black organization yet. Are you too sensitive? But I still find it strange. Conan is very depressed. Detectives always pay attention to evidence. Although intuition is also an accumulation of experience, there is no reason to doubt others. Isn't that becoming a Muri Kagoro? After a detective complained bitterly about his future father.in.law, he scampered to Ye Gengyi and asked. Dr. Aguri said he met the older brother on the roundabout, but it's strange. Only cars or motorcycles can go up the roundabout. Did someone intentionally leave you there, older brother? Ye Gengyi put down the newspaper and raised his hand. Conan covered his hair and instinctively took several steps back. Ye Gengyi grabbed the air and stood up without hesitation. Doctor, is there a store selling mobile phones nearby? If possible, I would like to borrow some money to buy a phone. Basking dishes, Conan was depressed and somewhat frustrated because this guy always ignores himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Touching the Grim Reaper, just washing your hands is not enough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Touching the Grim Reaper, just washing your hands is not enough. Dr. Aguri gave Conan a sympathetic glance and then turned to Ye Gengyi, saying. The nearby shopping streets should all be open, take them and use them. Thank you very much, doctor. I will repay you the money as soon as possible. Ye Gengyi took the wallet handed over by Dr. Ashi. In the extra memory, he remembered that he seemed to have a bank card for expenses, but the exact location is unknown. As for now, it's still important to save your life. Seeing Ye Gengyi holding a wallet but not putting it in his pocket, Conan, who was hanging it aside, discovered a new problem. Ha! Brother Ge's pocket is bulging, look at the shape. Is it possible that the phone he used to use is broken? It's strange, he's a very skilled professor. If it's just repairing the phone, he also learned it well when he was in Hawaii, there's no reason why the man in front of him wouldn't. After such a reminder, Dr. Agai remembered that Ye Gengyi had used his phone to answer calls at the Columbus restaurant. Okay, this needs to be explained. I accidentally got wet when it rained, and the style of my phone is also quite old. I took this opportunity to replace it with a new one. Ye Gengyi's answer is very reasonable. Speaking of only wanting to replace his phone, there is nothing suspicious about it. Anyway, Conan could never have had a big idea. This sentence suggests that he was looking for a remedy because he accidentally hung up the boss's phone. Conan certainly couldn't guess this step yet, but he just felt that Ye Gengyi was very suspicious. As the other party was about to go out and buy a phone, Conan quickly shouted. Oh, doctor. It's already dark outside. I'm afraid. I dare not go back on my own. Looking at those eyes that were constantly hinting, almost flickering with sparks, Dr. Agai, no matter how dull, also reacted and said. Ah, wait a moment. Can you please help me send this child back? Good guy. You're so cute and playful, you're really going to do everything you need, detective. Of course you can. Ye Gengyi has no reason to refuse. Looking at Conan approaching with a smile on his face, he only hoped that the store he was going to later would be safe for a good person's life. Go out and see off the child. Conan closely followed Ye Gengyi's side. Speaking of which, it is the first time he has encountered such a difficult guy. Completely ignoring one's own attitude is really frustrating. No, we can't give up easily. We must make him say something. Conan ran ahead of Ye Gengyi, pointed to the road ahead, and said. Ah, I remember. Brother Gung, did we meet here last night? Ye Gengyi turned a deaf ear and continued walking. Brother Gung, don't you remember? It rained last night, and if your phone was caught in the rain at that time, you shouldn't forget it. The older brother, faced with Conan's constant harassment, Ye Gengyi said, isn't this guy tired? He sounds very tired. Cough. Ye Gengyi coughed lightly, and Conan quickly fell silent. He listened fluently and succinctly. My Japanese is not very good, Conan. In one sentence, I was instantly killed. This man is simply lying. And without any cover-up. Conan was depressed. Although there were no communication barriers between this guy and Dr. Ashley, was it really just a simple dislike of communicating with children? Quiet will continue like this until you finish buying your phone. Ye Gengyi took out his phone card and replaced it directly. After turning it on, an unread SMS prompt popped up. There is only one simple symbol inside. Just as Ye Gengyi hesitated about how to reply, a few seconds later, the boss's phone call came back again. Ye Gengyi glanced at Conan and then at his phone. Well done. Conan looked up and said, Brother Gung, what are you thinking? It seems like there's a phone on your phone. Think about future events. After speaking, Ye Gengyi pressed the answer button and adjusted the volume of the earpiece to the lowest level. There was a dead silence on the phone, as if not even the sound of breathing could be heard. Ye Gengyi said calmly, the original phone got wet and broke. After a moment of silence, a voice using a voice transformer came in. What's going on? Ye Gengyi used as little information as possible to report someone's wrongdoing. That guy threw me on a circular road with no money, no umbrella, no coat, and it rained last night. Unexpectedly, there was a clear silence for more than 10 seconds and he said, Tequila happens to be in Tokyo. Contact him to help you pick up something. What did you originally want to do with icewine? Okay, Ye Gengyi responded. Doodle doodle. The phone hung up, and Ye Gengyi breathed a sigh of relief. If there is a chance later, just soak the previous phone in the accumulated water and it will be foolproof. However, it's really exciting to call the black boss in front of Conan. Lowering his head, he looked at the little devil's head resting on his toes, trying to bring his ears closer. Duong, it's a pity not to give a punch, as there's nothing that a child should look like. Conan hugged his head, he didn't hear any crucial information just now, don't be too depressed. Brother Gung, are you a foreigner? A detective continued to persevere. Ye Gengyi continued to remain silent. In this way, amidst Conan's incessant questioning, the two of them came to the bottom of the Maori detective agency. Finally arrived, Ye Gengyi stopped. Conan lowered his head, his glasses reflecting white light. Hey, it seems like I've never said before that I live at a Maori detective agency. So, how did you know? Good kid, I used to be waiting here. No wonder this guy has been walking behind him since the beginning. Not having Dr. Aguri follow and inquiring under the detective agency is probably to avoid suspicion for them. If he were an accomplice of the black organization, this kid might have prepared to take on the responsibility. Have courage. Ye Gengyi crouched down and tried to maintain a level view with Conan, saying. Because I read the newspaper. What? Conan looked up. A certain chairman seemed to have published a thank-you letter in the newspaper to thank Detective Mori for helping to retrieve his daughter, which also mentioned a child named Conan. Right. Idagawa Conan. So it's like this. Conan froze and remembered that Ye Gengyi had indeed read newspapers at Dr. Agai's house, which made him feel a bit embarrassed. But then again, you're quite annoying. You're not likable at such a young age, Ye Gengyi said as he pressed Conan's head down and ravaged him. He is in a good mood. Let go. Conan is in a bad mood. At this moment, a small car stopped beside the two of them. A man and a woman got off the car. Ye Gengyi frowned when he saw this scene. Seems like the aura of an event. The two of them seemed to have also noticed Ye Gengyi and Conan. The man's expression is solemn. He approached Ye Gengyi and whispered. Sir, could you please keep your meeting with us confidential? The celebrity Yoko Ono disguised herself as a detective, and once this incident is exposed, it will have a significant impact on her idol career. Forget it, this is not the place to talk, you come with me. I will pay you the ceiling fee. The man clearly didn't want to stay on the street for a long time, so he grabbed Ye Gengyi's arm and walked towards the Maori detective agency. Ye Gengyi did not resist, but lowered his head to look at Conan, who was also confused. Is the scope of this halo's restraint too terrifying? End of this chapter.